First off, I'd like to thank everybody for joining. We appreciate you taking your time. This is, I think, a pretty interesting demo for anybody that's looking to kind of get an idea of what, migrations look like. You get a little bit of an overview of the OpenShift UI. Today my name is Sean Erb. I'm a solutions architect under Modern Infrastructure for Arctic. My friend Ryan Clemens is a Red Hat ecosystem solutions architect. If you need any of our contact information or anything like that, feel free, leverage your chat. The chat will be how you guys communicate with us. If you guys have questions, we may unmute you to, if we need to have a brief conversation about whatever the question is, or, Ryan will be responding to any of your questions through chat, and, as we need, we can go into more detail. Our agenda is pretty basic. Just be doing a brief corporate overview, data center transformation, and a high-level OpenShift overview to kind of give people that aren't familiar with OpenShift an idea of what the platform's like and some of the different terminology. And then we'll be jumping into our demo. So, Arctic, we're based in North America. We have quite a few offices out of United States and Canada. Over 300 employees. DynTech and Arctic have both been around for a very long time. We are a conglomeration of 3 different companies: Arctic, Canada, DynTech, and our solutions, to make the current company that we have today. We are a full-service value-added reseller and have a lot of expertise in different things. So, what is this thing? There we go. So over here on the right, you get kind of an idea of, a lot of the solutions that we work with our customers on. We have a lot of expertise around, especially like networking and Cisco and security, and we break up our areas of expertise into 3 areas. We break up our company into 3 different areas of expertise around enterprise security, modern infrastructure, and platform engineering. Enterprise security, here we go. Enterprise security is, anything related to security, right? Like, so if you guys need anything around like security testing, evaluation of your security tools, we have a huge Splunk team that, can help evaluate your Splunk implementations. We have a large number of assessments to help customers better protect themselves against malicious actors. Modern infrastructure is, pretty much traditional data center plus cloud on the infrastructure side, like server storage, networking, automation. And then our platform engineering side is primarily based on development. We do have a number of delivery mechanisms, everything from, selling products for server storage, networking, whatever physical product, whether it's, application services or whatever. Professional services varies based on the project, but we do have, staff aug, help desk. All of our projects are managed by the PMO to ensure for success. Generally speaking, our statements of work are pretty easy to read. We're not one of those companies that, give you a million miles of red tape to go through. And then our managed services we have for SOC, systems engineering, and other support that we can help you on. This is a bigger list of our partners. This is just kind of going over our services and our methodology for how we go to market with our services to help make sure that our projects are successful. This is talking about our SOC services. So our SOC is 24/7. We have 3 different data centers. We don't do any offshoring. It's all in Canada and the United States. And so it's a pretty compelling solution. We can integrate with a lot of different solutions that you guys already use. So if you guys have any questions on it, feel free to ask, and we can send any information that you guys would be interested in, including setting up meetings with our, architects and engineers that manage those solutions. The next area is data center transformation. This is something I'm really personally passionate about. I think it's a big deal. Like as data centers get bigger, more complicated, even for smaller customers, people are trying to go and figure out how to run more efficiently. And that efficiency is ultimately what drives transformation. Um, so if your company is trying to go and figure out, you know, issues like this. So in this diagram, you can see, and this is generally speaking for most companies, the larger you are, the more relevant this discussion is. But most companies, they have their various silos where they have resources and things that, they're going to have different management teams and different things that come up, right? So you have, operations is going to be doing general management of the data center. Well, the architecture engineering, they're going to be evaluating new solutions that the company needs to, move forward. And a lot of times, if security wants to add a new security widget to, when new servers are built or maybe have a new application installed, that process is, very cumbersome and can cause a lot of conflict within IT organizations. So one of the ways you get around it is through transformation, right? So key parts of transformation are visibility. When you have an issue in your environment, are you able to see what caused that issue? Or are you having to log into individual servers, check out logs, and figure out, from without having any kind of automated way to evaluate where a problem came from or what happened with it? If it's taking you hours to go and, get an RCA for a problem, that's a huge issue. And the larger, more complicated your environment is, the more difficult it can be if you don't have, good monitoring, good information coming in to help you figure that out. Automation is good almost everywhere, right? If you guys have a change management process, if you guys do DR testing, if you do, building out new servers, new virtual machines, whatever, the goal is to take whatever your process is that is time consuming, difficult to implement, or whatever, and automate that process. And that will be another way that you can gain massive efficiencies. I mean, we've had customers that, deploying a virtual machine for some environments would take 6 to 8 hours just because of the process they had to go through. And then once we automated the process and resolved all the issues around, how that happens, which theirs was relatively complicated because it involved F5 and a bunch of other technologies, where oftentimes multiple groups have to go and work on it. Well, when you automate it, you can have each group create their own playbooks, and then that automation can go through as a step-by-step process and make it easier for you to, implement infrastructure or whatever it is that you're trying to automate. And then as you improve on your visibility and your automation and it gets more mature, you obviously will achieve speed. One other core thing to mention around transformation is your ITSM solution, config and change management, SLA. So like your lot of customers will be using like ServiceNow or something like that. Those solutions are great because that can be where your automation starts. So if you have external users within the organization that need resources or have a project or whatever, you can go and have forms, and then those users complete the forms, and then there'll be a validation process. That same thing can apply to like change management and QA and all kinds of other things. It's really just about, how do you go and turn a process into something that's documented through automation, which then simplifies it going forward. For OpenShift virtualization is something that a lot of people aren't super familiar with. A lot of people probably have heard of OpenShift and containers, but as far as virtualization goes, it's a little bit, less known. OpenShift does support a lot of the core functionality. I mean, most anything you can do in vSphere, you can also do in OpenShift, which is good. It is implemented, and it's a completely different architecture, though, than vSphere. There is a learning curve, so you definitely want to be aware of those things. And we are happy to, help walk you guys through the process. I actually have a really cool document that I created that does an even deeper comparison for all of the different the main hypervisors and how they go and they compare to each other and what their different technologies that they leverage for similar functions. This is topology for terminology rather for the various solutions. So you got Red Hat Virtualization, OpenShift Virtualization, vSphere. So most people are probably pretty familiar with this far right column around data stores. In OpenShift, data stores are at a high level called PVCs. Dynamic resource scheduling for DRS is anything related to pod evictions, descheduling within OpenShift. So if you put a host in maintenance mode in vSphere, DRS is going to go and reallocate those virtual machines online, and more or less the same process happens in OpenShift. They just refer to it as a different term. vSwitch, DVSwitch, you have Multis or NM state operators, more or less the same. A lot of OpenShift is more directly aligned with like vSwitch. So if you're familiar with the difference between a distributed switch and vSwitch, OpenShift has the functionality that you would get out of a DV switch, but the actual configuration is very similar to a vSwitch. In fact, a lot of the networking that you can get within OpenShift actually maps really well over to NSXT, but it is a little bit different on how it's implemented. But OpenShift generally is mapped more closely to like a vSwitch. vCenter VROps, and then you have OpenShift metrics and health checks. So they both have a central UI where you go and can manage your entire OpenShift environment, very similar to vCenter, where you leverage vCenter. Ryan, are you here? I see you're muted.
Yes, sir, I'm here. How's everyone doing?
Doing great. Do you know the answer to this? I thought there was a live migration.
Yeah, I was waiting for the right time to pop in there. So up until about a month ago or so, I would say no, we do not have a live storage migration in OpenShift virtualization. However, Red Hat's always working to be cutting edge and whatnot. So they now have it, and it's in tech preview. So what tech preview means for people who are not Fedora wearers every day, that is Red Hat's version of saying it's being beta tested right now, and it's out in OpenShift. I think the version is 4.17. Live storage migration. And typically what happens is when something gets released in tech preview, usually it takes one release to go into GA, or maybe a few, depending on the feedback we're getting. So it is there, but right now it's tech preview, which means beta. It's not a supported option, but I'm sure it will be very shortly.
Cool. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, perfect.
So within OpenShift, it does leverage containers. So but it's using KVM as the driver. It's just a libvirt process. So by being a container, it is more or less running a single process. That process is the libvirt process, which then leverages KVM to manage all the physical aspects of the virtual machine, and it ties it to the hardware. We do have an additional demo tomorrow for anybody that's interested around event-driven Ansible. And that's pretty much it for presentation. Now the rest of it is going through the demo. So for the purpose of the demo, we're going to have Windows and CentOS VMs to migrate. We're going to check the operating system details by looking at the virtual machines. Get into vSphere and go to VMs. So we have WinWeb 01, 02, HA proxy, and the database. We're not going to migrate all of them. We're going to leave some of them there because on the last part of this exercise, we're actually using Ansible to migrate the last VM and more or less show how you can automate the process. But this is a VMware environment. I mean, we're running, let's see, probably version 8, I would guess. Yeah, so they're using version 7 on their ESX host.
I'd just like to pop in and say, if anyone was interested in learning more about live storage migration or storage live migration, however you want to say it, I put a link into chat there. You're going to need a Red Hat login to see that note there, but it's in tech preview. So if you're interested in that and you're wondering why there was an NA up there and you wanted to dig into more into that, the link's in the chat.
Cool. Thanks, Ryan. So we'll be migrating first this WinWeb 01 user virtual machine that's right here. The actual migrations, we can't do a live migration because it's between two different hypervisors. So this VM is powered off. So when you're planning your migrations, it's kind of true for anything unless you're going like VMware to VMware, where it can, handle going between different vCenters. But when you're going between hypervisors, it's generally an offline migration. So you can do the initial copies and that kind of thing, but you won't be able to actually do the cutover until the VMs are powered off. Here we can see the different providers that we've already got configured. This is connected to your VMware environment, and this is the local host. And then we need to go to...
Yeah, what we're seeing there is, I just want to add a little bit of color there, Sean. We have two host providers, and the first one is just the cluster we're on right now, which says host. That's the OpenShift cluster. And it's very easy to set these things up. The VMware one, it just like Sean showed you the endpoint there. It's as simple as talking to your VMware guys, saying, "Hey, look, I need an API. Where's the URL? Where's the API URL for VMware or for vCenter? And give me a username and password that I can log on." And you plug that in. It's as simple as that. You create an OpenShift contacts the vCenter API, gets a list of whatever you have access to, and then you're going to see it soon. You'll be able to just go ahead and click on the VMs you want to import. It's as easy as that. So it's really cool stuff. If anyone, myself, who's been a data center manager and having to integrate all these different APIs, Red Hat OpenShift Virtualization and Red Hat OpenShift has made it really easy.
Hey, Ryan, if you want to go ahead and walk through it, I can go through the UI. It might be a little bit easier.
Yeah, sure, I can do that. Okay, so what you see up here is the VMware provider that I was just talking about, and you can see the URL over on the left there. That's just the URL you get, the API URL you get from your vCenter guys, and then the credentials over on the right there. It just says provider credentials, and he says there's something in chat there, Sean. Can you zoom in a little bit? Can you make your font bigger? I think it's Control Plus a few times. There you go. A few more times. There you go. That any better, Sana? Oh, right. Yeah. So just let us know. Okay, perfect. He's awesome. Okay, good. So yeah, so if we just want to click back on there, Sean, to the VMware one, these providers that you set up are just basically telling OpenShift where your vSphere is, and that URL on the left there, it's just basically the URL you would get from your vCenter guys saying where is the API for vCenter, and then you see the credentials on the right there. It says provider credentials. Or down there it says secrets, which is VM credentials. If he clicks on that, you won't see that. You won't see them because it's going to be hidden. But you could get into them if you're the administrator, right? They're all like encrypted or hash. I think these ones are encrypted, but sometimes there's hashes as well, so you can't reverse them. But the main thing is you get all that information, you plug it in. It's very easy. It's like 3 or 4 input boxes, and and you press OK. And then if your credentials are correct and the URL is correct, you're able to connect to vCenter and get a list of VMs. It's that easy. So
One thing I wanted to point out was I pulled up the YAML tab. One really nice thing about working in OpenShift is if you're trying to automate aspects of your data center and your environments, you can take, this is basically providing you the code that you need to automate various processes. This YAML can be turned into playbooks that you can leverage within Ansible because Ansible uses YAML. So a lot of times you can go and literally copy and paste from the UI into what you're trying to automate.
Absolutely. And that's the one thing about modern platforms, when you're in, especially OpenShift in specific, is that everything's built on YAML, which is the Kubernetes infrastructure. So it leans very well into modern processes like GitOps, right? And so if you want DevOps and whatnot. So if you're coming from the VMware background where everything's point and click, or different CLIs or whatever that really don't integrate that well into GitOps, well, guess what? OpenShift does. And so it's a real big culture shift, real big modern way of doing things and revising your pipelines, and integrates well with developers and DevOps groups. So they're happy as soon as you start talking their language.
Cool. Now we're going to create a plan for the virtualization
Yeah,
to
so
do the migration.
Yeah, what Sean's doing right now is he's creating a plan. So when you first create a plan, you press that button, you have to select that source provider, and that VMware source provider is the one that we set up just a couple seconds ago. And I told you once you put in all the right information, you would show you a list of VMs, and there they go. There they are. It's that easy. Now, Sean, did you show the vCenter tab to show the VMs?
Mhm.
Right, they're
Right
all
here.
there, right?
This is what we're moving.
Yeah, so you can see on the left there's the data center, the HAP proxy, and the two WinWeb servers. The data center is a Linux server, HAP proxy is a Linux server, and the two WinWeb servers are just running Windows and IIS. So that's all
That
Sean
is
sees
actually
there.
one important thing.
Yep,
That is actually one important thing. Within OpenShift, you actually don't need this VM, so we aren't going to need to move it. Because within OpenShift, it comes with its own load balancer built into it. If you're using F5 or something like that to do web load balancing, you can continue to use it, but you do have the option within OpenShift because it supports load balancing natively within the platform.
correct. Yeah, that's a good point. The HAP proxy was to do some load balancing between the two IIS servers. But in OpenShift, we have a Kubernetes object called load balancer, and it's as simple as, I mean, if you guys have worked on load balancers in AWS or Azure or whatnot, it's the same concept. You create a load balancer, you tell it where it needs to load balance to, and away you go. No extra HAP proxy server required. A container does it now. So that's it. So Sean's just going down the list now, and he's selecting the WinWeb server. I think you're going to select the database server as well, Sean. Yep, there you go. One of them. And then I think you're going to select the.
Yeah, it's the database and the WinWeb, but it's
Yep.
just interesting because it's got these other ones.
Yep. And I think it's the WinWeb and the database server. And then you press next. So after you selected those VMs, press next. You got to, and then you're put into these details. You got to select the host, the target provider, and that's just the host. That's just the host cluster where we're putting this onto. The target namespace is, we're just going to leave it at an OpenShift MTV. And this network map is important, right? It's where there's network maps on vCenter, and you're seeing that right now on the left there, network segment migrating to OpenShift OCP Virt. Now that's something your vCenter guys would have set up, right? If you want VMs to move out of the vCenter network into the OpenShift network, they're going to have to, do their SDN magic and create like a network map or a network to be able to allow them to move over to the network, the OpenShift network. And if you're not a vCenter guy or a vCenter networking guy, that's fine. You can leave it up to the vCenter guys to just tell them what you're trying to do, and they'll create that for you. But it's quite simple. And then on the right there,
It
we're just
should be auto-selected in, though.
yeah,
This network only has the one network for VMs. We can see it in the vSphere side.
correct.
On the OpenShift side, it's going to import all of the networks, and it's going to, by default, choose the one for the virtual machines that you are migrating. So
There you
if
go.
you're migrating virtual machines and it's got, tied to whatever, vSwitch or port group or whatever, it's going to go and pull in all that information. And then you just have to choose where you want it on the destination side.
Right. And right now, all we have is pod networking, but everything's software-defined networking in OpenShift. We just kept it simple. One network called pod networking where all the pods talk. But I mean, you can get right down and make that as detailed as you want as what kind of network you want. And the storage map, we're just migrating the storage that is on vCenter over to the one that says, yep, Ceph RDB. And then you go, and then you go. No, last thing you have to do is go up. You have to put the go up there, Sean. I think it wants a name, right?
Oh, the name.
The plan name. It always gets me too. Every time I go through and I'm like, what did I miss? And this plan name doesn't matter what it is, whatever you want, as long as it's a Kubernetes a valid name, it's happy. So, no spaces, no capitals. Okay, press create migration plan. And it's as easy as that, guys. We select the target provider, the host provider, select the VMs you want, give it a plan name, and press OK. Now you see the status button on the just turning around there saying not ready. Give it a few seconds, it will say ready. If you go all the way down to the bottom there, Sean, you can see what's happening. It says conditions at the bottom. So it's validating the VDDK init image right now. And you want to go back up? It might be ready at this point. No, it's still spinning. So it's just making sure that that image is correct and that we're not going to migrate over something weird. That just takes a few seconds. And when it's ready, what will happen is the VMs will start to migrate.
Yep. So, and again, this is the YAML. So if you are going and trying to go and automate this process through, you can leverage aspects from this YAML and use it as input for your playbooks.
Yep, correct. And it said the object was updated there, Sean, while you're in the YAML. So you go back to the details there, and it says ready.
It's ready.
So if you scroll down, no, let's see. If you scroll down, you should see plans somewhere. Go back up. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Okay. So you see, no, you don't click start. Not yet. So virtual machines. I just want to show if you click on the virtual machines, there are two VMs, right? Just want to show everyone those are the two virtual machines we're bringing over. All right. You just want to make sure. Now you can go and click the upper right hand button there, start migration, and you go ahead and start. And now you'll see it's running. And Sean, if you click on the 0 of 2 VMs migrated, you'll see the details to that. So you can see the pipeline status over on the right there. And right now it's just gathering the information, initializing the migration. And you'll see each one of those disks go green when they're done. There's one right now. And then it'll move on to the next stage, next pipeline. So now it's allocating the disks. And when it allocates the disks, it's just basically making sure that it has enough information over there to enough allocation on the disk that it needs to put it on. And once it's confirmed that, it's going to go ahead and start migrating stuff over. So you go up there, go up to the very top there. Oh, that one failed for some reason. Maybe you clicked on the wrong one there, Sean, to migrate over.
Oh yeah, it doesn't like it.
So there was a bunch of usernames there, Sean. I wonder if you clicked on the wrong ones.
No, I think it was I think what the problem was is the virtual machines I selected, because that's why I was a little confused, because it's got so many VMs on there. I wasn't 100% sure.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Ones.
So guys, just to explain, this is a demo. This is a demo environment. So we got a bunch of different virtual machines on there for different reasons, and there was about 3 of them with the same name. And I think our lines got crossed. He got the roadshow ones. I think those are the ones you want up. No, not the roadshow ones. Are the ones?
Actually, no, it's not. It's not. You want the one in the second page, I think.
The second page. Okay, yeah, user one. There you go.
So it's roadshow.
Yep, and then go to the.
Oh, I see the database. Okay, so this is the ones.
All right, we're clicking on the right VM system. You probably have to name it something else because you got another plan.
Yep.
There you go.
Select a provider. And then everything else is the same. You can go create.
Sure.
must have been.
Okay, there you go. You can go ahead and start migration now.
Oh, cool.
So same thing, guys. You're going to see the disk coming up, the initialization. And as it's initializing, just checking things out, getting the YAML files ready, getting the containers spun up, everything it needs to support this migration. Because yes, it's OpenShift. It's a container platform. It's going to use containers to migrate things, which is pretty cool. So initialization's done, disk allocation is done, and then it's going to go ahead and do the image conversion. All right, and that's moving over now. So converting image to KubeVirt. Helps if we select the right VM, Sean. Happened to me a million times as well. It's just a demo environment. In your environment, guys, you won't have weird VM names like that because you won't be doing 2 or 3 demos on the same server. So there you go.
Yeah, that was where, unfortunately, templates. So they were templates within the VM environment, so it won't let you convert templates for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why, but I'm guessing those have to be templates that are defined in
they're not
VMware.
fully fleshed out, right? They're just templates, and there's probably a flag there
It's
saying,
like
"Hey,
if I was to deploy a new
yeah,
VMware 1.1, I could, and I would use that template.
sure."
So
So there it is, guys. We're going ahead and moving things over now. So if you want to go back there, Sean, I'll kind of give a little demo of what's going on. Okay, so the image conversion, you can see that one's for the first VM. If you scroll down, open that one up, you see it for the second one. They're both converting the images, and after about 5 minutes, or maybe even earlier, they'll go ahead and start bringing the data over. So you can see everything with Kubernetes. Everything's running there. You can get all the logs you want. All he did was click on the logs portion, the tab up there, and look at that. If you're a low-level software guy, you're a low-level hardware guy, and you want to see the IRQs and chunks coming over, here you go. You see everything.
yep.
No, we're not. We're saying the virtual machines do not have to be templates. Great question. I'm sorry for that confusion there. The templates might have an issue migrating over. That's what Sean was saying. They have to be fully fleshed out virtual machines, is what Sean was saying.
Yeah. So you would have to go if you wanted to keep a template, you'd have to convert it from a template to a virtual machine, and it would just be a powered off virtual machine. And then you would migrate the powered off virtual machine, that's your template, and then you could templatize it when you get it into OpenShift.
Templatize it. I love that.
Yeah. So you can go, I mean, there's a process within OpenShift. There's a catalog. So you can go and take your templates that you've already created. Once you move them over, there's a way to go and add it to the catalog and that's the equivalent for an OpenShift template. So
Absolutely.
as you can see, there's a bunch of stuff that's already here. So any of these we could go and deploy. So if we wanted to deploy, RHEL 9, we could, and then it would just be, going and selecting it and then getting it configured with networking and everything.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the beautiful thing about OpenShift virtualization. It has all these templates, RHEL 9, RHEL 8, Windows. And you can go in there and you can, it has a basebone template that you can go up and spin up, or you can go ahead and tailor and edit that template and then make your own. Really cool stuff. So Sean, looks like one of those VMs has succeeded. You can see the image conversion, the disk transfer, and it created the VM. And there it is. One VM's ready to go. And that's the database VM, which is a Linux machine. Has one CPU, 2 gigs of memory. And this great thing about this is like, it has all the things you would expect in vCenter, right? I mean, it looks a little different, but it has all the same stuff. You have a console where you can get into something. You have the ability to start and stop it or whatever, take a snapshot. So that's what Sean's just looking at right now.
This is the route.
Right. So you can see inside of OpenShift, if you're not familiar with it, they have you're able to access, create, and view all the different Kubernetes objects, such as routes, services, network policies, ingresses, everything like that. And if what Sean's looking at right now is called a route, and that's a Kubernetes object saying, hey, how does stuff get in and out of the cluster? Well, routes control that. Routes you can tie to a URL address, and you can tell it it's going to be HTTP, HTTPS. You can give it different certificates. You can tell the route saying, "Hey, if something comes into this Kubernetes cluster and it's encrypted with HTTPS, how do we deal with that? How do we forward that to the containers inside the cluster?" Well, you have a bunch of different options. You can terminate and you can terminate the HTTPS and then forward it unencrypted. You can decide to re-encrypt it with your own certificate, or you can just forward the whole certificate right to the external certificate that it got on the route or that it's tied to with your URL right to the server or the container it needs to go through. So that's what routes do. And then services are basically kind of like routes, but they're internal, right? They're how does how does load balancers know um, about certain web servers, right? You create a few web servers. Well, the load balancer needs to know where they exist and how to get to those web servers. A service does that, right? And then so the load balancer would say to the service, okay, well, I need to, how do I get to these web servers? And the service provides that routing internally. So
Another
services and
really
routes are
critical
the
part
two.
to
Yep.
OpenShift is related to labels. So
Yep.
as you can see, OpenShift automatically populates a lot of labels. But for instance, if you have this web app, we could go into the web server, these virtual machines that we have here, and we can go and apply additional labels to these if we want to. So for instance, if we wanted to see here, where do we do the label guide?
And why would we even want to apply a label? Well, think about it. If things are moving, if VMs are moving around, sorry, yes, if containers which host VMs or containers just in general in OpenShift are moving around to different servers all the time. It's not, they just don't, live specifically on one server. The OpenShift cluster could decide, hey, we need to move it over to this node, right? Then they're constantly changing IPs. The internal containers that host the VMs, or even containers that host just containerized workloads. And so we need a way to be able to address those and find those inside the cluster. And labels are a way to do that. You label everything called web server, things that are web servers. Like let's say you brought a VM over and there's two VMs and they're both IaaS web servers. Well, let's say you want to be able to access those web servers somehow through the Kubernetes network. You would label those both web servers. And the way other things find that is they just query for the labels and they find all the things that are tagged web servers. Pretty cool stuff.
It's going really slow. So here I went and I think I called it, I forgot what I called it. Group web app. So if I go in and I do the web window and do group web app, then when we search for virtual machines, we can find all the VMs that are associated with that label. And you can use that for monitoring. You can use it for pretty much anything. And it's one of the really cool things about OpenShift is because labels are so integrated into the UI and into the application, you can go and do searches for it. What was that?
Yeah, these labels you can call anything you want. Sean's calling it group equals a web app, but you could have called it Elmo equals red. It doesn't matter. It's just something to search for. And so that's a really neat thing about OpenShift is the searching power for all these things in your cluster you can bring up really quickly. And there you go.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter obviously for this environment, but if your environment has several thousand or tens of thousands of virtual machines, being able to go and do, searches for, maybe you guys have, business unit and you guys provision resources by business unit. You can very easily go and do an export and see every single resource that's tied to a business unit or however your organization is mapped out, and you guys maybe do like backbilling against like KLO or whatever. It makes it really easy to go and to tie resources to things within your environment. And so while this
Abs-
one doesn't really matter because we're just talking about a database and a web server, if you guys had a complicated environment where maybe you had load balancers and you had, you know, um, web servers, middle tier databases, and there's multiple of them that all is tied into a single application, this is one easy way to kind of group all those together for those resources. And then you have a way to go and to reference them whenever you're doing automation or, whatever. And I think that's it for this one, right, Brian?
Hey,
We can move
Sean,
on to the Ansible portion.
yep. We could talk for hours and days on this kind of stuff. So just wanted to pause in the chat. Anyone have any questions? I know we're dumping a lot on you here, and there's a lot to go through. But if you have any questions, someone might be thinking the same one. So go ahead and chat and throw it in there, and we'll do our best to answer it. So what Sean's doing right now is he showed you the first way of migrating things over, which was the MTV, and that is the Migration Toolkit for Virtualization, which is an operator that you can install inside OpenShift, and you just saw how easy it was. You can also do it through a great product that we have is called Ansible Automation Platform. And this is one that's true to my heart. This has saved my butt as a data center manager for the last decade before I came to Red Hat. So Sean, he's giving us a demo right now, and he's launching a template, or he's creating a template. And what a template is basically just something to say, hey, what are we going to do here? How are we going to migrate these things? And when he clicked on the launch template, it asked him to go ahead and to provide the names of the VMs they want to migrate. And so what he's done. He's prepped WinWeb 2, and he's going to go ahead and click next. There you go.
All this other stuff was already populated. So when you go in, when you create the playbook that this is executing, this is just a form. So you guys can provide, customize this to your own environment, make it as simple or, difficult as you want. I mean, these could be drop downs. There's a lot of flexibility on how you have all this configured because it's just defined within the playbook.
Absolutely. And so the MTV, the migration tool for virtualization that we did before, just migrated over the VM. That's literally all it did, right? It didn't do any extra stuff. It wasn't an automation pipeline after that. Ansible Automation Platform gives you the flexibility of, bringing it over and then doing a whole bunch of other things too. Let's say you bring it over, like we all know these multi-tier applications, we're not just going to bring over the database and the VM and say, go. Things need to happen. Like you need to tell where it can find it, link up new networks to it or whatever, or, do things to the application. And so Ansible Automation Platform allows you to not even just migrate it, but to actually do a whole bunch of automation steps, maybe before or after as well. So it's a very, very powerful product. Just another way to migrate things over if you're working with complex migration plans. And so what you're seeing here is Sean's gone ahead and executed the play. And it's just going through. If you've never seen Ansible Automation Platform before, this is just all the time you see tasks coming up. That's another play inside Ansible Automation Platform. And these are really easy to write automation steps. It's plain English. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Python or Bash or C++ before and your head started spinning. Don't worry, it's not like that. There's not all those wild, crazy for loops and everything and weird ways of semantics of programming something. Ansible is very simple. It's based on the YAML language, which basically means well, not language, a YAML markup standard, which is basically stands for yet another markup language. It's like writing HTML stuff. You ever wrote HTML? You know, you have the header with the H1, and then you have the, you know, the P /P for writing. Ansible is very much like that. It's simple. And so it's human language. You can understand it. So writing these tasks and these playbooks are very, very easy. And there's a question in chat there. Are there any hands-on labs, this kind of setup for testing out OpenShift? Yes, we have lots of the on-demand labs that you can spin up. That's a great question, by the way. Depending on what you want to do, there are lots and lots. You could spend weeks on our on-demand labs that you can spin up in a few minutes, and it guides you through the whole process. Now, it all depends on
One
what
of
you're
the
trying to
things
do.
that
Right. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
one of the things that we do for our customers is Red Hat has, just like Ryan was talking about, they do have some really great labs. And so we actually help our customers run through those labs. So we can help you and your group, run through a lab. We just need to go and meet with you guys, kind of understand, what your guys' use case are, what you guys are looking to see, what you guys want to validate. And then we can actually run through that in one of the many labs that Red Hat has available. They
Abs-
are provisioned, by, Red Hat. So we just have to kind of coordinate it a little bit, but it's definitely very doable. A lot of the labs are a lot longer than this demo, which we've only got 8 minutes left. We may go a little bit over for people that are able to stay. Um, but the labs generally will run, closer to like 4 hours. So we just kind of put this together as something quick to hopefully introduce, people that are interested into OpenShift and what the migrations look like. And, you can then see how, the UIs would work and what that migration looks like. Obviously with your own environment, you're going to need to, we're going to need to do a lot of testing. We actually have full service, soup to nuts for your migration, your planning, the whole 9 yards to help make your migration from VMware to OpenShift successful. It is substantially cheaper than going with VMware. For those that don't know, VMware just had a huge price increase again in November last month.
oh, again.
So the challenge is you just never know, with the new ownership on Broadcom, it just seems like that they are just going to constantly, squeeze as much as they can. So that's making it very, very difficult. And I
How
mean,
much
I've
did
been
they
doing VMware for,
how much did they pay for Broadcom, Sean? Do you know?
I have no
How
idea.
many billions? Put it this way, if I was Broadcom, I'd want to get my money back, you know?
Yeah,
So
so I mean that's what they're doing. They're trying to get their money back as soon as possible. So they increase the price substantially.
So
Um,
that's a great answer, by the way, Sean, about that. And Arctic does these custom, they can do POCs for you. They can do on demand. They can do these 4-hour labs. But I just wanted to highlight that on Red Hat's website, we do have the 30-minute lab, so you can just get in there and test something and learn something really quickly. But beyond that, Arctic, is such an amazing partner of ours to be able to take you to that next stage, to be able to put context to that, right? There's one thing about learning about something, and then there's another thing about putting it to context and how would this work for you and your environment. And Arctic is a fantastic partner. So we'll give you a few links so you can do the on-demand stuff. Actually, all you have to do is click in Google and say Red Hat On-Demand Labs, okay? And you'll get to that page. But beyond that, contact Arctic. Give them context about what you're trying to accomplish, and they'll take it from there. They're fantastic.
cool. Um, there was a monitoring part to the end to kind of go through some of the Red Hat monitoring through ACM, which is Advanced Cluster Manager. So if I'm not sure how long that'll take to go through, Ryan. Do you want to go through that for the last 5 minutes, or if anybody has additional questions, we can then address those for while people are still there, based on what we've already covered. Up to you guys. But the ACM basically is kind of like the within vCenter you can see like the status and performance and what things are using. So within ACM you can kind of do that same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just quickly talk about ACM. I don't think we need to show it. But I just wanted to address this, finish up this one question inside the chat there. I just threw a link there, guys. That is, you know, a lot of our quick 30-minute labs that you can on-demand spin up and do little things here and there. Go ahead and have a look through it. There's a lot of them. And on the left side, there's the Red Hat Ansible Automation Platform labs, OpenShift labs, RHEL labs, whatever you want to do. But those are just very simple things to learn a concept, right? Arctic is your guide to be able to apply it with context and do those custom POCs and stuff. So what Sean's talking about is there's something called ACM, which is Advanced Cluster Management for OpenShift. And what that means is if you have a whole bunch of OpenShift clusters, like let's say 2, 3, anything more than one, but even just with one, you can use ACM. And what it is like a hub and spoke method. If you have more than one cluster, you want to be able to manage all the policy on all those clusters and the applications in all those clusters from a central location. You don't want to go into, you don't want to go into every cluster and do it manually or even have scripts run on every different cluster. You want to do it from a central location, and ACM allows you to accomplish that. Just another one of products that that Red Hat has in this OpenShift suite, which makes OpenShift really the Mercedes product for a container platform and virtualization platform. Now, one thing I wanted to mention also, and some of you guys already might have OpenShift in your environments. OpenShift Virtualization is not another product you have to purchase. And the sales guys hate it when I say that. But it comes with OpenShift and every different version of OpenShift. So if you don't have OpenShift, all you have to do is procure OpenShift. You don't have to procure OpenShift and then OpenShift Virtualization. So good news for your ears there too. So if you have OpenShift, if you're using OpenShift, all you need is to look into how to run it, how to use OpenShift Virtualization for your requirements, because it'll be already in your product. Any other questions in the chat? Is anyone running OpenShift in their environment right now? Is anyone thinking about migrating from vCenter? Okay. Well, if you are, just throw it in the chat or, let us know. Otherwise, Sean, do you have any other things to add here or whatnot?
Oh, I think that's pretty much it. Once again, my name is Sean, and Ryan is also here, and this is our contact information. I believe we'll be sending Robert Tran will be sending a email, like some kind of thank you email with to each and every one of you, and to follow up and see if there's anything you guys need. He can loop in myself and Brian or any other resources that we need to help you guys out. And that's honestly what we're here for, right? We're here to make you successful and to figure out what's the best thing for you guys. My experience is, I have a lot of experience in a lot of different areas within IT and infrastructure. I've been doing it for a very, very long time. I know Ryan has too. So anything we can do to help you guys out, we'd really appreciate it. And look forward to next time.
Looks like there's one question in the chat there. Sorry, Sean, I just didn't want you to. Yeah. Wilson asks, is OpenShift not a Kubernetes base? Also can manage VMs. Great question, Wilson. I appreciate that. And a lot of people are probably thinking the same thing. So thanks for asking it. Yes, OpenShift is a Kubernetes base. Everything in OpenShift is Kubernetes. We like to say OpenShift is an opinionated package of OpenShift. It's OpenShift. Of Kubernetes. It's Kubernetes under the base. Everything is Kubernetes in OpenShift. That's why they call it OpenShift Container Platform. It's all Kubernetes. Even the migration that we're running and everything was running in containers to do the migration. And yes, it can also manage and support VMs now. And the way that works, because you're probably going, hey, if it's all Kubernetes, how is it running VMs? Well, it's doing that in a container actually. So it migrates the VM over, and the container that it migrates it over to has something called KVM. And KVM is a kernel-based virtualization software that has been included in Linux for a long time, and it's a kernel-based virtualization hypervisor. So what that means is that it's not a type 2 hypervisor, it's a type 1 because it's in the Linux kernel. And containers run on Linux, so it just makes sense. So when you have a container that is running KVM, you can bring that VM over to that container and put it in that container. And so that container runs the hypervisor, and that VM runs in that container that's running the hypervisor, which is integrated right into the Linux kernel. So it's really fast, and it acts exactly like a container. In terms of Kubernetes thinks it's a container. It doesn't care what's in there. Now, OpenShift went a little further. OpenShift knows there's a virtual machine inside that container, so it adds all the extra Kubernetes objects to be able to manage that virtual machine inside that container. Hopefully that
One
explained it.
one really common question that I get from, the many customer meetings that I've had around OpenShift virtualization is, what does the overhead look like compared to VMware? And they're both very comparable. I mean, the overhead that you get for adding the additional layer of a container on top of a virtual machine is really minimal. I mean, even at scale, when you're talking about tens of thousands of virtual machines, you more or less can go and run on the same number. And part of that is due to how OpenShift is managed. OpenShift, they break out. It's a more, generally broken out architecture at scale, where they separate the servers that do the cluster tasks versus the servers that they call worker nodes, which house the virtual machines. So it makes it a lot more efficient from a hypervisor perspective, because you're only paying for the hosts that run virtual machines. If you separate your master roles from your worker nodes, you won't pay any licenses for the master nodes, only for the worker nodes. So management and that kind of thing, they all kind of come for free. So it's better to go ahead and break those out, and that way you don't have to pay any licensing for it. And then that makes it to where you can maximize the amount of virtual machines you can run on your hypervisor, because unlike in VMware, where everything is kind of run from the same box, and it does so relatively efficiently, like there's not a huge amount of overhead that VMware has on top of it. And that more or less applies the same to OpenShift.
Great question. Any other questions, guys? I could stay a little bit longer. Okay, well, if there aren't any, go ahead and email your questions to Sean or myself or Arctic, and we'll do our best to answer those for you. So, Sean, you want to close it up? Or...
Yep, I just put my email in. If anybody needs it, I'll leave this up for a couple of minutes, and then I'll be jumping off. So, thank you guys for your time.